He is here today to have some fun and, more importantly, to empower you to think differently about how you lead and communicate in every part of your life.
There is nothing more important in this world than your belief in yourself.
Justin studied body language from a former FBI agent.
If you want to be a great leader of other people, you got to first be a really good leader of yourself.
To welcome our keynote speaker to the stage, and you are in for a real treat.
Justin was absolutely amazing. Justin was great.
International speaker and author of the new best-selling book, Bold New You.
Justin is an amazing speaker.
Justin Patton is a rock star.
Justin, wow.
Justin, wow.
Justin.
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 So my name is Justin Patton, and I'm an executive leadership coach. The hardest question I've ever been asked is, what is the difference between loving someone versus enabling someone? And I got to tell you, I did not know how to answer that question. It took me 2 weeks, and I went back to him after I had time to really reflect and think about it. And I said to him, I believe that if my love ever gets in the way of you taking accountability for yourself, that is not loving, that is enabling. Have someone in your life that's your champion. For me, that was my dad. This man was indestructible in my eyes, so I remember getting pretty uncomfortable, but I looked at him and I said, Dad, are you okay? And I could hear them on the phone with the doctor. And the doctor said, hey, bring him in tomorrow, we're gonna check him out, we're gonna make sure he's okay, and we're gonna go from there. And I was teaching band programs at that time. I was getting ready for a band competition, and I said goodbye and I love you, and I walked out the door. And when I came home, I found out he had died in my mom's arms. What makes my keynote presentation so memorable is the level of audience interaction. I use audience interviews and questions and demonstrations to really bring their viewpoints center stage. I want you to focus on your body language, because the only point of me showing you this is, do you know what your body language is doing so that you can connect better with other people?
I didn't realize that getting called up on stage was going to get that vulnerable, and it was definitely a body awareness and definitely makes you reflect and look in the mirror type of conversation.
Every business's bottom line is directly impacted by trust and effective communication. And the work that I get to do helps create a workplace culture that gets results the right way. Because when we do that type of work, we have people that show up with stronger confidence, who communicate with more influence, and who have credibility that people really buy into.
Justin just created the most amazing keynote. I've just come out of it. Boy, does that guy know all about leadership. He totally understands what it's going to take to actually create the most amazing culture of leaders in your organization.
Ego. Okay? Now I know somebody back there is like, yes, I said that. That's your ego, by the way, okay? So it's okay, it's okay, all right? Now, this is what is really important. We all have it in this room. So if you're sitting back there going, oh, why are we talking about this? You're the one I'm worried about. What people with ego do is, if there's a spotlight, who do they always put it on? They will always turn the spotlight on themselves.
So he's got some one-liners that are phenomenal.
Leadership is not about you, but it starts with you.
That is so memorable. And it gets people thinking, wait a minute, I am a leader. And again, do I need to listen to that voice that says I'm not? Or can I break through those obstacles and be the leader that I have within me?
As leaders, it is possible to be gentle without being weak. We can be gentle while also getting results, but also doing it the right way. if there was ever a time to believe in yourself, the time is now. And so if no one tells you they believe in you, I believe in you. More importantly, I hope that you find the unshakable courage to believe in yourself. So I want you to say yes if you agree with this. Say yes if you agree that to be a great leader of other people, you got to first be a really good leader of yourself. Yes? Yeah, you know, for me, that took me a really long time to get, and probably even longer to really live out in my life. Elizabeth Gilbert, she is the author of the book Eat, Pray, Love, and she says this line, she goes, "The most interesting moment of a person's life is what happens to them when all their certainties go away. Then who do you become? And then what do you look for?" And we've all had that moment in our life where everything that was certain becomes uncertain. Whether that is getting a new job, or having a boss that you really love and admire leave the company and now you feel like you got to start over. Or maybe it's getting divorced, or having kids, or losing someone that you love. Well, for me, I don't stand here because I got all the answers or I got it all together. I made a lot of mistakes. And that moment in my life where everything that was certain became uncertain happened on September 19th in 1998. I started college where I met Nick at Eastern Kentucky University, and I had been there about a month. And the weekend of September 19th, I decided to come home for the weekend, spend time with my dad and my mom. I was going to this band competition, and my dad, a month prior to me going to college, had surgery. And you all, my dad was that champion in my life. And he was in the Air Force, he fought in Vietnam. We grew up on a farm in Mount Washington, Kentucky. So in my eyes, this guy was indestructible, he could fix anything. But his surgery was supposed to be pretty minor. He had hemorrhage surgery. It was supposed to be get him in, get him out, no big deal. And I remember the day I came home, he was still in a lot of pain, but we never had anyone in our family ever have surgery. So we didn't know what the process of recovery was like. So I remember that morning, he wanted to spend time with me. So he took me to go get groceries for my college dorm room. Afterwards, he took me to go get my hair cut. And then when I came home, my mom had made lunch for all of us. And we sat down at the kitchen table together. And my mom is sitting right here in front of me. My dad is sitting here to the side of me. And this is the moment that I knew something was wrong. Because at some moment, my dad put his fork down, he tilted his head down, and he started to cry. That was the first time in my entire life I'd ever seen my dad cry. He was not one of those guys that showed a lot of emotion. And I remember looking at him and saying, "Dad, are you okay?" And he was that kind of guy that just kind of brushed it off. He's like, "Yeah, it's fine, no big deal." So I remember finishing lunch, went around the corner to the living room, and I was eavesdropping on my parents, and they were on the phone with the doctor. And the doctor said, "Bring him in tomorrow. We're going to check him out. We're going to make sure he's okay, and we're going to go from there." So I got ready for this band competition. I said goodbye and I love you, and I walked out the door. And when I came home, I found out he had died in my mom's arms. And what had happened, he was in bed with my mom. And I don't know if any of you in this room have ever had that moment where your heart kind of flutters or does something weird, but that happened to my dad. And it didn't feel right. And my mom goes, "Bruce, are you okay?" And he looks up at her and he goes, "Yeah, but that didn't feel right. And if it happens again, I think we should call the doctor or go to the hospital." And it happened again, and he died instantly. And what we found out later was after surgery, they left gauze inside of my dad. And so for the month and a half that we thought my dad was recovering was actually bacteria growing through his body. And that's why he was in so much pain. And it ended up getting into his bloodstream, and it started shutting down all of his organs. The reason I tell you that is because why I'm standing here. More importantly, I didn't know, as an 18-year-old kid, I didn't know how to cope. So I coped the only way I knew how to cope. And for me, that was to emotionally disconnect. And I emotionally disconnected from everyone in life, including myself, for the next 12 years. I led teams out of only my headspace. I was the kind of leader that some of you in this room are going to be, where you say, "What's just my way or the highway?" I would classify or justify my behavior and say, "Well, I'm just a truth teller. I just tell people how it is." No, I was a jerk. And I didn't know how. Is that you? We'll talk about it. Okay. All right, that's okay. No judgment, right? So what happened is that I didn't have empathy for people because I didn't even have empathy for myself. And what I realized is my behavior towards everyone else was really about my relationship towards myself. And that's the key of emotional intelligence. And at about 30, I hit a low point. I had been pushed out of a job I really loved. I had ruined most of the relationships in my life because people that only show up in their headspace, they're transactional in every relationship. I have the chance to coach executives all over this country, and a lot of them only lead their organization out of their headspace. And all of their relationships, whether it's with their partner, with their kids, and the ones at work, are transactions. And it's dangerous and it's destructive. And I know because I was that person. And at about 30, I was sitting in the living room on this floor thinking, like some of you maybe in your life, like, what is my life coming to? I knew I felt like I could play bigger, but I didn't know how to do it, but I was gonna figure it out. And the line that just kept coming up for me over and over was, no one's coming to save you from yourself. It's gonna start with you. And so no one's coming to save you right now from the boss that you don't like. No one's coming to save you in your marriage or the relationship with your kids. It's gonna start with you. And that is the key to emotional intelligence. Do we even have the awareness of how we're actually showing up? And then do we have the courage to do something a little bit different? So here's the deal today. In the time that I have with you, you're not gonna stand up here and look at me. We're gonna make this really interactive. There were 4 things that I did that radically changed my life, my business, my relationships, and I'm gonna share them today with all of you in the hopes that they will be able to empower you as well. So I wanna get started. I want everyone in the room to go on and stand up. So stand up where you are. All right. So I'm gonna show you some famous celebrities on the screen. You're gonna have a really positive or negative reaction about everyone. And your job is to yell out the first word that you think when you see that celebrity, all right? I do not want you to censor yourself. Now listen, I've seen how some of you act in the hallway. You all have this, okay? So I don't want you to be all buttoned up. I want you to let go. We're not gonna judge your answer because you're gonna have an opinion about every one of these people within 1 second, all right? So just yell out whatever that word is to you when it comes up. Here we go. So Oprah Winfrey. All right, there's 450 of you all. That was like 100, okay? So you have this. All right, next one, Justin Bieber. Okay? Donald Trump. All right, Ellen DeGeneres. All right, Kim Kardashian. I see you're like, I'm not even gonna answer that, okay? That's good, all right. Martin Luther King Jr. All right, 2 more. Let's talk about Lady Gaga. Yeah, you like her, okay. You and I were connecting today, all right. And last one, Tiger Woods. I gotta tell you, it happens every time. We always get here and everyone's like, oh. Yeah, every time, okay? Have a seat, I'm gonna tell you what you just did. So if you don't know, you just did something really important because every one of you within 1 second have a judgment or have a thought about all of those people. And I want you to know that even in this room today, everyone has a thought about you. Within 1 second, they're making those judgments. The problem is so often, we don't even know what those words are. And we haven't even thought about how do we really want to be perceived by other people. So in leadership, there's this term, it's called your emotional wake. So you all say yes if you agree with this. Say yes if you agree that everywhere you go, you leave an emotional imprint on people when you leave, yes? Everywhere. So it doesn't matter if it's it's your grocery store. It doesn't matter if it's at the bank, the fast food company, when you checked into the hotel. Everywhere we go, the way that we show up with our presence and our mindset, we're leaving an emotional imprint. Well, in leadership, we call that your emotional wake. So think about this. Imagine if I got in a boat and I start heading this way in the boat. If I start going this way, what happens to the wake behind the boat the further out I get? It gets bigger, right? So what happens is this interaction between you and me starts out really small, but what happens is she leaves your store, and what does she go and do? She either goes tell somebody in her family about it, or even worse, and now because of what's going on, we got social media, and they get on social media, and what starts out really small becomes really big really quick. Your influence as a leader, your credibility is based on your emotional wake, and you will not take responsibility when you don't have a vision for how you want to show up. So I'm gonna tell you about when I got it really wrong, because you don't care about when I got it right. You wanna know when I really screwed it up. So you all know, if you fly, you know the worst part of the airport. What's the worst part of going through the airport? So you already know this, right? It is TSA, all right? So years ago, I was in the Toronto airport, Now you all, I'm not a super early morning person, and it was crazy early. I got through customs, and I was going through security, and I got through the little x-ray machine, and this TSA agent is right here checking a man's backpack. But there were all these bins lined up in the conveyor belt so that no one's bag could come out. So at some moment, I wait patiently for her to get done. She gets done checking the man's backpack, and I walk over, and I go to slide all the trays down. Well, I don't know what thought she had when I did that, but when I went to go slide all the trays down, the TSA agent woman goes, wham! And like the sound that she made on that plastic like echoed through everything, and I jerked up, and if you're from the South, you'll get this. In my head, I was like, bless her heart, no, she did not just do that, okay? So if you don't get what that means, I'm gonna help you understand, okay? So people in the South tend to be very polite, very respectful, but they're very passive aggressive, okay? And so when they say bless your heart, it is not a good thing, okay? It's like, oh, you lost your job because you stole that money, bless your heart. Or your kids are acting really crazy and they're like, oh my God, your kids are so beautiful. They are excited today, bless their heart. They're telling you you're an idiot, okay? So, so without even thinking about it, I jumped up and I was like, bless her heart, no, she did not do that. And without thinking, I reacted and I said, well, I'll show her. So I stacked every bin on top of one another. I slid them down. I said, fine, I'll do your job for you. That did not go well with TSA. I do not encourage anyone in this room to ever do that, all right? And she and I are yelling at each other in the middle of the airport. And I got my backpack on and I take 20 steps down the terminal and I stopped. It was one of the first times in my life I just stopped. You all, I teach people for a living to take responsibility for their energy. And I built my entire career in business off that. Take responsibility for your energy, your presence, and your mindset. And I didn't do it. And so I have a chance right now. I had to make a decision. In that moment, I was like, okay, I have two choices. I know how I am. I will either go on the rest of my day and I'll obsess about how it went or what I did, or I'm going to take responsibility for my part in this relationship. I do not agree with her behavior. I still think she was wrong today, but I was like, it's not about her. It's about me owning the wake that I want to leave and stay true to my integrity. So I'm standing here and I'm like, I teach conflict. I coach leaders for a living. I have this, all right? So I start making my way back to TSA, okay? You know this ain't gonna go well, okay? So I start making my way back. She's turned around and I said, excuse me, ma'am. This is not being dramatic. She goes, what? And I said, I owe you an apology. You did not deserve the way that I talked to you, and I just want to tell you that. She goes, well, I don't accept your apology. Bless her heart, okay? Because had I not had it together right then, what would I have done? I would have wanted to be right. And I'll tell you all, the older I get, the more I learn that being right is really overrated. But I would have wanted to be right. And what happened is, in that moment, I had from emotional intelligence, I was in check, so I had it together, and I said to her, ma'am, you don't have to accept it, but I just feel like I owe that to you, and I just want to tell you that. And I said, I hope you have a good day. She looks at me and goes, well, I hope you have a bad one, and walks away. And I'm like, who says that to people, y'all, right? But here's the lesson it taught me. It is, when you leave here, we're going to talk about your emotional wake. You're about to script out how you want to be perceived by people, but you are not always going to get it right. And the point of this conference, or even this session, is it's not about always getting it right, but when you don't get it right, do you have the awareness to slow down long enough and go make it right? Not about excusing their behavior, but about this is how you want to show up.